Jamie, say something.
Hi.
Yay, okay, I can hear you. Wonderful, okay, we'll get started now. All right, guys. Woo. Down, it's hot in here, my goodness, they are not, they're not adjusting, we're in between the, seasons or whatever. That's a little hot. Okay, so I'm just gonna preface this with, we are talking about the mindset behind running comps. I have 3 videos and some resources already in your, Google resource drive for how to technically run the comps, but what I'm finding is that we're having some, issues with the mindset behind these comps too. All right. So I'm gonna start this off with asking you guys a question. First is the why. Why do we run comps in general? What is your intent? What's your purpose? And I'll make it easier. We'll start off with when you're representing a seller. When you're representing a seller, what is the motivation behind running comps before you get that listing up?
So you can explain why.
When do you go first?
Well, almost a new bill or whatever the case may be.
Okay, who else was saying something? Was it Jamie or Hannah?
I was saying to determine the value of the home.
Okay. Anyone else?
I would want to price it right so I can sell faster.
That's the kind of answer I was hoping for. So some of you guys have been going on listing appointments, and that makes me very happy because we've been focusing on listings this entire quarter so far. So I'm like, all right, they're doing the things, they're getting listing conversations started, they're going on listing appointments. You guys will send me comps that you ran prior to or post your listing appointment, and they are outrageous, as in super high priced, and sometimes they're not even in the same neighborhood. They might be within like the 3 miles of the home, but when you're in the city, 3 miles is too far. So the appraiser, when an appraiser goes out to look at the value of the home, they won't go further than 3 miles unless you're in a super rural area. But that 3 miles does not mean you get to just go pick out what comps look good within a 3-mile radius of your listing appointment. Your job is not to gaslight the sellers and make them feel that their house is worth a lot more than it actually is. That's not a service to you or your client. Your job is to find the comps, the true comps for their exact neighborhood, for their house that they want to sell, so that you can price it correctly and it will sell quickly, which is what makes you a good agent. So that's why we're having this like mindset class, and to do that, you guys are, doing these comparative market analysis to help prevent underpricing, overpricing, to build trust, justify value to appraisers, set client expectations. And this client expectations, oh, you know what, you guys are about to let me have a whole class and not record it in. Hold on.
Recording in progress.
All right. This setting the client expectations is the biggest part. Your job is to sell a house, not sell the idea of what the price is or is not. It's to sell the house in its current condition, in the current market value. So like I said, picking out comps that are $60,000, $70,000 outside of the area are not doing yourself or your client a service. And so we're gonna hone in on exactly the criteria and the little checklist and the mindset that you need in order to do that. So we're gonna always start with your subject property. The things that are important for is pricing and running these comps is the property subtype. Single family, condo, multi-unit, if it's 1 story, if it's 2 stories, if it's a brick colonial home, if it is a, stucco covered, traditional home, if it is a Cape Cod, if it is a cottage, if it is an end unit versus an interior unit, beds and bathrooms, square footage, how much yard or the entire lot size, year built, and then renovations or upgrades. And this is in order of kind of like, importance, but all these things have to be taken into consideration. What's your name?
T.
I'm T too.
Oh, good.
And also, that's another T with the blanket on right there, and another T. Everyone here is a T name. So someone and. So you have to, who's ever heard the phrase, you compare apples to apples or oranges to oranges? So when you're running comp and your subject property is one of these brick, built in 1920 row homes of Philadelphia, and you pull a comp for a single family sided house that's 2 miles away, maybe over even a different county line, we're comparing apples to oranges. Just because it's in a close vicinity doesn't mean it's a comp. You need to compare the same type of house to the same type of house. Beds and baths. If you're in a neighborhood, and this happens sometimes, where there'll be like 1 or 2 houses that have 5 or 6 bedrooms, and then every other house on the block is your standard 3-bedroom, 1 bath. 3-bedroom, 1 bath is like the standard for homes here in Philadelphia, especially if you pay attention to closer you are to the water, the smaller the homes are, and the further you get away from the water, the larger homes are. Does anyone know how that evolved? If you haven't met me, I'm a history nerd. It was my minor to accounting and taxation when I was in college. So, as you know, most cities start near the waterfront. All the workers have to work close to where they live, close to where they work. That's how they get there. And also back in the day, that's how they were overseen. And they couldn't afford it. We're not given the luxury of having a spacious house. So it's called tenement housing. The houses over here in Old City that are no bigger than a little bit and have 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, that are like 900 square feet, and now they're selling for $500,000 because it's in Old City. That was the original dock worker, fisherman, iron worker, servant, indentured or not, whatever, like that was their housing. That's why it's so small. It was just bare necessity to go to sleep at night and have a meal. It was not to live in. The further you get away from the source of where all the labor and the commerce was, the more extravagant the houses are, because the wealthier the people were. They didn't need to live. Do you know how dirty it was back in the day being down here downtown? I mean, it's still dirty now, but it was way worse back then. You know what I mean? It was way worse. They, they affectionately, the world likes to call us Philadelphia, you know what I mean? Which I kind of, it's very offensive. But back in the day, it was worse. So the people that had money didn't want to live down here, and back in the day, it wasn't cars or whatever, it was horses. So imagine having to walk through a river of horse shit to get to work in the morning. If you have money, you were not doing that, right? So the bigger houses are further away from where the people were working, because there was a separation of classes. All right? Knowing this kind of stuff is a little bit important because it helps you understand no matter what city you're in, what the makeup of that city is going to be and what the house is going to look like. Does that make sense? Right? Okay. So beds and baths. You want to compare apples to apples. So a 6-bedroom house on the block, you can't necessarily compare to that 3-bedroom. Now, there's absolutely no comps. It might be one of those neighborhoods where people literally live in their house till they die, or they keep passing it down generation to generation, so there's nothing brand new. Then you're gonna have to go by the next thing, which is square footage. So if the property type is the same, the construction's the same, the year it was built is the same, the lot size is the same, but you just happen to have one of the 3-bedroom, 1 bath as a subject property, and we have to use the only 2 big ones that have sold, then you're going per square foot. So if the big 5-bedroom house is 1,800 square feet and it's sold for X amount of dollars, you can divide the X amount of dollars by the square feet, and that gives you the per square foot price. So then you take your little tiny 980 square foot house by the square foot price, and this gives you your comparable price to tell your seller what it should be selling for in that neighborhood. Did I say that too fast or leave anybody in the dust?
Can you repeat that, please?
So you need to find the square foot price. If you get yourself jammed up and you're in a neighborhood where there's not a lot of turnover and a house of the comparable square footage has not sold in a year or 2, then you find a house that is the same type, same year built, same condition, and you find the square footage price. And then you multiply that square footage price by the actual square footage of your subject property.
How
Here,
do you get the square footage? Because I know it is listed on right, but from my one listing, I know the square footage isn't correct. Because it's like, it's saying it's way, I think way bigger than what It really is. So what if you have like a situation like that?
So you have to have an appraiser go measure. And you'd have to pay for that to have that done, but if not, you're not going off the square footage. Like to find the square footage price for comps, you can use the numbers that are right from the comps you're looking at and apply it to, you're going to have to, for right now, apply it to whatever square footage that's in public records. And on the deed, you can also go look at the deed for the house. You can always go back to the deed, so you would call the county, Newcastle County, and get the square footage of the house. They're probably counting, in Delaware, they're slick and they try to count finished basements as a living square feet. And they'll put it, cause you'll see on right where it says above ground and below ground, and they try to just lump it all together. So that's probably what has happened. But if you go back to the deed, it gives you the original square footage of the house. The next thing you wanna talk about is renovations or upgrades. And this is where you get into a little bit of a sticky area with sellers. Because they don't typically ask a real estate agent or a real estate professional before they start spending all this money on renovations and upgrades. They do what they think they should be doing and what's gonna give their house all this value. Then they call you and now you're gonna be the bad guy and tell them that that ugly ass textured mall wallpaper that they just spent 20 grand on to make the house look nice is for their own specific taste and doesn't actually add value to the house. Or the pool they put in 2 summers ago thinking that it was gonna hold its value and make this house, worth 50,000. They put a pool in that their house goes from being worth 200,000 to 375. That's not what happens when you put a pool in. Even though the idea of having a pool seems really awesome, it actually costs a lot of money and looks like a lot of work to most buyers. And so unless you find a buyer that specifically really wants that task of pool maintenance and then have one in the backyard, but either way, it's not gonna add that much value to the house. It doesn't, right? So, especially if it's the only house with a pool in the neighborhood, that's not on trend, so then it's not a pool neighborhood, if you will, right? So like, it's like the opposite mindset, if you will. So, but when it comes to renovations or upgrades, it's bathrooms and kitchens. A kitchen will literally sell the house, because a kitchen renovation can be very expensive. Right, so if that's already taken care of and like the rest of the house is just, and somebody will buy that house because it's much cheaper to renovate a bedroom. That's just paint and floor, maybe some light fixtures, right? And to upgrade a small bathroom, but kitchens, bathrooms, like finishing out the basement, having more livable space is always gonna be the better renovation. If they take a 2-car garage and convert it to, and get it permitted and convert it to an extra living space, that increases the actual square footage of the house and the value of the house. Now, somebody that really wanted somewhere to park their brand new car might not like it, but that's not the buyer for that house. But generally speaking, anything that increases livable square footage and was permitted and done correctly is gonna help. So yes, that will help with your comps. You can say, yes, the comps are 230 in this neighborhood, but you're the only house that has turn the 2-car garage into a mother-in-law suite, and now you have 800 more square feet of living space, so we can add this to the price of your house, right? Now, it might go the other way. They're gonna say, oh, well, my neighbor just sold for 275, why is mine only 225? Well, your neighbor put $50,000 worth of upgrades and renovations to their home, and you did not. Just because it looks the same on the outside, it doesn't look the same on the inside. And when people say that to me, I say, oh, did you go to the open house when it was for sale? I'm saying, did you go look at it? A nice way of saying, did you go inside the neighbor's house? Your house don't look like your house, crazy, you know what I mean? If they say, yeah, I did, that tells me right then and there that I'm dealing with a delusional seller. Because there's no way you walk to that house and you think your house is worth their house. Because you still got grandma's floral upholstered sofa and shag carpet and wood paneling. And they have everything all nice and marbled out, white, gray, black, you know what I mean? So there's no way. If they say, oh no, I didn't walk through there, I'm like, okay, this makes sense, I can work with this because we can get on the same page, right? And here we're gonna talk about that relevant search area. When you are in a urban space, so my Delaware agents, if you are in Wilmington, city of Newark, if you are downtown or near Main Street of any small town, or if you're here in the city of Philadelphia, if you're in one of the larger cities in New York, you are gonna, when you're searching for comps, so you go that drop down in right, and it says 0.1, which is 1/10 of a mile, you wanna start there, because a tenth of a mile is a big space in the city. There's a lot of houses within a tenth of a mile, and that's gonna mean you're probably on the same block. I just had an agent send me comps last week, and they were like, they already put the listing up, it was before I met them, and so they are jammed up, I'm trying to help them. And I said, they sent me their comps and said, where'd you get the price of this house? It's $35,000 over any house that's sold in the area. You know, and they were like, oh, well, I found these comps here, here, and here. And I said, baby girl, that's, half a mile away. And she was like, well, that's not that far. I said, it's too far when there's 3 houses, 2 next door. So this house, so you say 230, 231 sold for 230,000. You have 232 listed for 265. It's the same house, everything's the same. Investors came in, flipped the old house, they look the same finishes, same square footage, like it's a beautiful house. But if the 2 neighbors next door sold for 230, what in town made you think you were gonna sell for 265? What's so much better about your house? She's like, well, I found these comps. I was like, those are not the comps. The comps are your neighbors. First, the comp is right next door. You always have to start right next door. If you're in a more, like residential or like a suburban area that has like neighborhoods, your comps have to start in that neighborhood before you leave outside the neighborhood. Right, we have hoods, we have little boroughs and hoods in all our city, right? When you go out to the county, they also have neighborhoods. They have fancy names like Quail Oak and whatever estates, right? Well, the homes in Green Estates might be right next door to whatever Oak neighborhood, and these houses might be in the millions of dollars, and these houses don't go over 650. So you can't pull a comp from one neighborhood to the next, you gotta stay within the neighborhood, right? That's what the appraiser has to do. So I'm gonna go back and say again, because it's so important, it's not your job to gaslight your sellers into that.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, of course, you always wanna start, 21.
Yeah,
So before you head into going into, bigger radius, do you start searching 0 to 360, 365, 0? Do you go back a year or 2 even
Yes.
there before you even go?
I go check it out. Cause this is, Louis just asked a good question. What he's saying is, if you stay within that 10th of a mile and you're not finding anything, then is your next parameter timing? And I say yes. But as soon as that instant happens, I'm gonna stay within the geographic region, because you have to only change one variable in your little experiment at a time. Because if you change too many, you don't know what your outcome is or what changed that had that positive effect. So I'm gonna go back and look at time now. The default on right is 0 to 180 days. That's the default when you're searching for these properties and these comps. The default, so you're gonna do 10th of a mile, 180 days. If nothing pops up, the first thing you're gonna do is, I just go ahead and jump to 365. And because that's gonna tell me instantly if people just live here forever or not. If people on this block have stayed here forever, that means nothing is sold within the past year, right? So then I'm gonna take it back to 180 days, and then I'm gonna go out another 10th of a mile. Or, you know what I mean, to the next thing geographically, and I'm gonna say, okay, nothing is sold in the last year on this block within this specific neighborhood. So let me go out to the next parameter that's in bright and search this and see what's happening. So then what might happen is you might go from having 1 comp to like 19. And what that tells you is this very specific block, grandma and grandpa still live here and they ain't going nowhere. Do you know what else that tells me? It's time to get them out. Right? That it's time for the neighborhood, not that I want them on to leave, but this is an opportunity for investors to come in and people to capitalize on these deals, right? So when you go out and you find some more, now you have to be really strict about the condition, the square footage, the year the house was built. You have to make sure you're still comparing apples to apples. Y'all have to make sure you don't just cross where it says here, avoid crossing major roads or city lines. I sell a lot of houses over here in West Philly. If I'm running comps and they are south of like Walnut or Chestnut, I'm not gonna go north of Walnut or Chestnut Street looking for a comp. I gotta stay below. Because Walnut and Chestnut Street run like this, they divide our city in half, upper and lower. You can't compare the houses built above Walnut to the ones built below, whole different neighborhood. Just like you have to count so many streets over, like once you start getting past the teens, going west, you're in a different neighborhood. So you gotta keep houses in the teen number streets below Walnut and between Raw. See how that's a nice quadrant there? That's comparing apples to apples. When you start getting into twenties, thirties, sometimes the forties you can keep in that range of blocks below Walnut. And in this little quadrant, those are apples to apples. Once you get over 40th and you keep going left, that's a whole different neighborhood. Till you get all the way to 63rd, and then the park starts, right? That's a cutoff right there. You also can't jump across an entire park. That park's there for a reason. You're laughing, right? You can't jump across the park. You know why that park is there? Separation, right? That's a different neighborhood. So you can't jump across the park and be like, oh, that house sold for 285, and you know damn well yours isn't even getting 200. Right?
It used to, in West Philly, all that used to be overlooked. They now split overlook until they put the overlook arms, apartment overlook something else.
Yes, yeah,
And they're literally all different prices.
yes. So this is, and I'm not here to, have a civil rights movement or to get into all that. That's a whole nother type of class we could talk about for years. We've been talking about it for years and still don't have any definitive answers or resolutions, so I'm just teaching you guys how to deal with what we have to and to do your job, okay? But yeah, so we also, zoning is also a big thing. Anyone know what the unicorn property is in every big city? That every investor and person wants so bad? You're not allowed to answer, but you might know. What's the unicorn? Commercial bottom, residential top. Commercial on the bottom, couple units on top. That is the perfect unicorn property. Everyone wants it, they go so fast. And then you might run the conditioner in, because somebody will fix it up, get their money back, right? So zoning is super important. There's probably tens of thousands of illegal triplexes in the city of Philadelphia. Also in the city of Wilmington, Delaware. And I gotta give love to Delaware. I lived there for 16 years, so I know about that place, right? So they're illegal. You wanna know why? Because they're zoned like RM1 or RM5, which says you're allowed to have up to so many units per parcel. But if it's over the one unit, you have to still go apply and get the permit or the variance. Just because it's zoned saying it's allowed to have this, if it's not actually been granted and the person did it, the owner didn't go do that, you have now an illegal triplex, which is now a liability for the next buyer. A triplex that's not properly permitted is not as valuable or worth the same as a permitted triplex. So even if they're right next to each other, this one that's not permitted is about gonna be like $25,000 to $35,000 less value just because of the headache it could possibly go through. Because just because this one got the permits and they were blessed by the city to get those approved, this guy over here was a jerk and thought he didn't have to ask for permission. And so you think the city's gonna rush? No, they're not. Now you're gonna have a problem. Then they're gonna inspect it. And yes, they're gonna find shit to fix because you didn't get the permit ahead of time. That's how it works. Again, I'm not saying that's right or wrong or ethical. It just is what it is.
Can you get a rental license for it then?
No, ma'am. Now for that third one, you can't. You can only get a rental license for 2 out of the 3. So you're gonna have an illegal
Yeah.
accessory unit. Yeah. Now it happens every day.
So you can't just get a tenant there, they just don't pay.
The only time you get jammed up is if the tenant starts complaining, because the tenant's the people are gonna tell the tenant, well, this isn't even a permanent rental, and then
They're
they're,
not stop paying too.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's how you get a squatter.
yeah.
Yes.
And most folks don't know,
Yeah,
but they're starting to get clever out here, so if you get caught without that rental license, you don't have any
any
rights.
right,
Yeah.
So you can't evict them if they're not paying, technically, they shouldn't even have been paying.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
And they can sue you for that money back,
yeah.
all of it.
yes, all of it, every last penny plus attorney fees.
But doesn't the city only show if you have a rental license, not how many units you have a rental license for?
That's that.
It says everything?
It says, so it'll say rental license, and it'll have in parentheses,
It's 1 to 2
how many
units,
one,
3 units, quadruplex, whatever.
I have a rental license and,
Yeah, no, it does that. Another thing that's important to take into consideration, There's always that dividing street where the kids on this side of the street get to go to this school and the kids on this side of the street get to go to the other school. That affects the value of your home. And you're like, you just said it's in the same neighborhood. Well, you just picked out a lucky side of the neighborhood. It is what it is. If this school district has a 0 rating on niche.com, and this school district over here has that 5.0 also rating on niche.com, because we're all using niche.com when people ask us about the neighborhood and schools, right? We're not telling them that it's a good neighborhood or bad neighborhood.
Said what? Niche.com?
Yes, niche.com. Whenever, to keep you out of hot water and from violating fair housing, anything, niche.com. They can look up the neighborhood, the school district, the stores there, everything. It does not need to leave your lips. Niche.com. You're welcome. That'll help you save your license from here till eternity. So school districts in the neighborhood, and again, staying in that relevant search area. Again, I think I'm beating the dead horse, but this is so important because I want you guys to approach this with the right mindset. Again, we don't like being gaslit. That's just a new term that was made up the past couple years for manipulation, by the way, in case some of you that are younger don't realize that. Being gaslit just means manipulated. We don't wanna manipulate our buyers or sellers, but again, let's put it on the other side now, when you are representing a buyer and we are running comps to see if the list price for the house, we're not just gonna trust that some listing agent put the correct price for the house, we're just gonna let our buyers just buy anything, right? We're not gonna do that. So when we're representing a buyer and we're running comps, it's to help protect our buyer, to help make sure they're making a great investment. And that we're not letting them buy something that they're gonna be negative in equity. And they're not, losing their money here. So, sold within the last 3 to 6 months, similar build, layout and style, close match in square footage, similar lot size, garage parking setup. Don't mix remodeled homes with outdated ones, which I think I touched on that. Use at least 3 sold and 1 pending for balance. Also, when I put 2 active on here, the 2 active is not for you to use as an actual comp. It's to let you know if there's any other crazy agents in the neighborhood and what they're trying to do. Right? You don't share the actives. You just want to see what other agents are putting their price at. You're like double checking yourself. That's what it means for balance. So you look at 3 sold, pending and sold, you can share with your clients because what actually has happened. The actives are for you to give you an idea of what's going on in the neighborhood. For example, I just sold 114 South 58 for 31,000 over ask. It's also probably about 40,000 over market value. How I did that, I have my own little strategy, and if you're in my program, you learn about it. If not, I don't know what to tell you, but either way, I did that. So this is the most valuable home sold in this area now. So you know what I just did? Fucked up all the comps for the rest of my little fellow agent friends, because they're gonna run comps and be like, how the hell did that shitty house sell for 131,000 and all the rest in that condition only sold for 75 or 85? It was my little crazy strategy. I have people fighting over the investment, right? However, I just messed up life. The other houses are not gonna sell for 130,000, but guess what's gonna happen? The agents are gonna try it. They're gonna use my one little comp to try to boost up their price. And if they get lucky like I did, they might change the value of the neighborhood over time, but I'm the catalyst right now. I'm the asshole right now that did it. I messed up the whole neighborhood, right, by doing that. I could have started a valuing of West Philly, that neighborhood, not for nothing, is not like a desirable area, but you know what I mean? It is what it is now. I went there and changed the game, but all the agents, that's why I say, look at some active to see what your people are doing, because if you don't pay attention to when you put a house up for sale, and your house you put up for sale, and it's 145,000, and due to its condition, the rest of the houses are only selling for 100. And let's say you put your house up for open house on Saturday from 12 to 2, and another agent puts their house up from 12 to 2, and they did the right thing, and you're doing the wrong thing. Nobody's going to your open house. Right? So it doesn't even matter sometimes what the what the actual comps are. What's happening today in this neighborhood when I'm trying to sell this house? What is gonna be happening the first weekend that I put it up? Who else in the neighborhood is having an open house? What's their price? Is that gonna be a active comparable? Because people they don't like to just go to one house for open house on the weekend. They like to go tour a couple in the same neighborhood, especially if they're walkable, right? They'll walk from this house to this house. So don't set yourself up for failure. even though you ran comps and you're like, this is what it's worth, if for whatever reason, these other agents are lowballing you, guess what's gonna happen? Your seller's gonna take a little bit of an L, if they wanna sell that house quickly, cause how do you justify it? How do you justify 3 other houses being same condition, comparable for sale for 10 to 15,000 less than yours? Does that make sense? It's not gonna be cookie cutter, you have to be a little strategic and analytical, yeah.
I have a question related to listing. If you have a home on the market and you don't have an offer after 2 weeks, should you drop the price right away?
I mean, yes, and also what else is happening? Like maybe you need to audit, again, your strategy for listing. You need to audit your photos, your description. Did you upload your docs to make it easy for people to submit an offer? Nothing I hate more in life, I go look at a house to put an offer on, and I go look at owner, and at the bottom right-hand corner, and it says client of dickheadrealtor.com, and I'm like, why do you do that? We have to have the owner's name to write the offer, now I gotta go take extra steps and look through public records and look through it. Like, why are you protecting? Are you that worried that someone's gonna come steal your client just because they turn up their name? For the love of God. Or they don't upload the seller's disclosure and lead based paint, and I call them, they're like, oh, just submit your offer, I'll give it to you later. What do I look like? Well, I need the disclosure so my clients know what the hell they're buying. Just put them in Bright, there's the reason why Bright gives you the ability to upload these docs with your listing is because they're required to get them uploaded, right? Right, so you don't be that agent. And also, when you're dealing with those agents, don't come at their neck, you do get more bees with honey, right? So you call and say, hey, I have a very interested client, they're a very qualified buyer, I just need these disclosures so I can go ahead and get this offer prepared, we need to review them. Then see what happens, you know what I mean? Next thing I do is send an email with the broker attached, like, hey, I already asked for this next one. You know what I mean? Yeah. This is my, did you put your hand up, or you were moving? All right,
Wait, I got a question for you, Tess.
Yeah.
With when you talk about you're going out, how far are you willing to go out before you're like, okay, I can't go this far out? Cause I know typically they say the best is right within the block, the
Oh, yeah.
the 0.1,
yeah,
and then I like to go like 2.5, and then after that, you're kind of pushing it.
I'm
Like
not,
0.5 is like in the city, I'm talking about.
yeah, in the city,
That's too far.
I'm not really going over half a mile in the city. And then even at the half a mile, for me, I like to be between like a 10th and a quarter mile of that house, because I feel like anything outside of that, we're in a different neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right? The only part of Philadelphia that's that big that you might get away with over a quarter of a mile is up in north. You know what I mean? Like, that's a huge chunk of the city, that's like this big, right? But down here, that's not happening. So what I do is go back in time and find the last house that sold on this block. Consider how many years ago or months ago it was, look at the square footage and then adjust for inflation. Yeah, I know it's gonna appreciate a little bit, so for example, over here in West Philly, the house should have been priced at like between 80 and 90, because there was a bunch selling at that. But if I had not found comps and I was in like grandma and grandpa's neighborhood, and everybody's grandma and grandpa's living there right now, nobody's left their house in a generation or two, then I would just go back in time, and let's say I saw that 2 years ago, which would have been right at the end of us coming out of COVID, right? Yeah, sold for like 65. It might have made me list it for like 75, right? Or maybe 79.9. I would have given it a little bump because a couple years have passed. Because the other thing is, somebody also has to be the new tester for the neighborhood. There's always a catalyst, right? Somebody has to be like, well, nothing's sold in this neighborhood for 5 years, so I gotta be first. So it's just being able to be analytical and look at what has been happening, what the last property was that sold, whatever. I'm never gonna just go pull something from too far away, because it's not, there's no way we do that. I'd rather be in the same neighborhood and it be from a while ago and make an adjustment for inflation versus going way out of where my property is and not really being comparable no matter what I do. And if you need, like, how do I know what inflation is? Google it and see. You can literally Google how much inflation have we been exposed to from whenever that house sold, 1999 till 2025. And it's gonna give you a percentage. Google literally does that. So all you do is you take the price per square foot, increase it by that percentage, apply it, and we got a price. You're like, damn, I didn't know I was gonna have to be an economic expert. Yep, you have a little bit of everything. So here I have a just like an appraiser. Your price per square foot, but not blindly. Add or subtract for bathrooms, garage spaces, kitchens, renovations. Also, you have to be spatially aware. What is outside of this home? I know when you watch $1 Million Listing, have you ever seen the audacity of these people in Manhattan on $1 Million Listing New York talking about traffic? Girl, it's Manhattan. It doesn't matter unless you live underground in a bomb shelter, you still might hear the Manhattan traffic. What are you talking about right now? However, when you get out to the suburbs, out to the county, as you guys call it out here, and it's all serene, but then you get the one listing that there's like a busy road. You have to understand that that's gonna be a major buyer complaint. And who tells us how much the house is worth? Us, the seller, or the potential buyers?
Buyers.
Yeah, the market does. The market is the potential buyers. So if you have an open house and everyone's like, oh, the house is so lovely, this or that, it's too noisy, or it's not safe because there's no fence and the road is right there. You're gonna have a conversation with your sellers about adjusting the price to compensate for this, because guess what? They're gonna wanna put a privacy fence up. They're gonna wanna plant tall trees and have to spend money on that to buffer the noise. That's smart landscaping. You can even do that in the city, by the way. You can literally put certain plants on your little patios to help buffer noise. Oh, yeah.
That, I did an open house Saturday. And I noticed something I didn't notice, because the weather was nice, and I'm sitting in there and I hear, and I'm like, where's that coming from? The next door neighbor, it sounded like the speaker was inside
Yes,
my house, and I'm like, damn, what am I have to bring a speaker
cover the
to,
noise.
to cover up.
Yeah. When you're in the city, there is sound proofing paint and also wallpaper and materials that you can put on the inside of your house to help with noise. There's also certain plants and landscaping things and materials you can use outside to help absorb and buffer noise. The guy that from Basetime, what's his name, Jovel? I think his name's Jovel, from Basetime Landscaping, you know what I'm talking about? That name? I could be calling him one name.
Joe Base.
Joe Base, yeah, Joe Base, that's right. Joe Base with Basetime Landscaping, me and him had a conversation about this one time. He's actually really skilled with that, because he normally works right here in the city. There are things you can do, so that's a conversation you can have, like, you know, also, neighborhoods change over time. And you might get a listing that's like the last residential property on the corner, and across the street is a tow lot, or an industrial workhouse, or something like that. No matter how beautiful this house still is, they're going to take a little bit of an L on that price because there's not a good view across the street. Also, there's like workers, instead of like it being a family neighborhood, now you have residential butted up right next to industrial. Nobody really wants that, so you have to take these things into consideration, because you'll be like, coach, I ran the comps, it was this, it was that, and I'm like, well, what's going on? What's going on with the house? You know what I mean? What's across the street? What's in the yard? Are the neighbors wild? Neighbors can kill your deal too, and that sucks. What are you gonna do besides put up a big 10-foot privacy fence? You know what I mean? But these are external things we have to take into consideration while we're running these comps. It is not cookie cutter. I know you guys want to have that so bad, because it'll be easier, that everything just goes through the little conveyor belt and comes out and chop it off and sell it, right? But it's not gonna be cookie cutter. All right, so in your little toolbox for running these comps, and it's so funny because we literally, Tiana just taught class on the market reports for sellers. One day you guys can understand that we just don't think of a class the night before, that every quarter is planned out in a scheme to get you thinking about the same thing for a long period of time and get these leads in. But write MLS and market reports, so you know what's going on in the neighborhood. If you've not downloaded the app or ever done this, there's RPR, it's a, I don't say go online, Realtors Property Resource. It is free. And you can get comps and numbers and neighborhood information. It's super awesome. CRS Realist for tax records. Your cloud CMA, which for you guys in command. Moxie Works is really awesome. It does beautiful reports. You will have to pay for it. You don't need it, because you can use Write MLS in your command, but if you want to, go ahead. And then also Google Street View. When you guys are running comps or looking before you go to a listing, if you don't Google Street View that thing and check out the 360s, you know what the hell is happening in the neighborhood before you even, how about you need to check for your own safety? Maybe not if you're 6'5", but like the rest of us, you know what I mean? We need to check, you know, and see what neighborhood I'm about to drive to. Where in the hell am I going? You need to see what's going on, and you also need to have the right mindset. Anyone, I have grandparents in Brooklyn, and when I was growing up, Williamsburg, Brooklyn is not the hoity-toity antique place today. It was not like that in the 80s and 90s, okay? So my grandparents, because they have a lot of pride, they're immigrants, they hooked up their little brownstone, it was immaculate. When you opened the door, it was brown on the outside, you walk in, white marble everything. Gold, gaudy, everything, because they're Middle Eastern, right? It was so clean, there was fresh flowers, the backyard was all paved down and had plants. There was an olive tree in my grandma's backyard, she probably brought that shit from the Middle East, wherever, as far as I know. But it was so beautiful. It was pure hell outside. And so when they wanted to leave New York and move down to Delaware, because my family did that, to save money with their retirement and all this stuff, and get their kids out of the city, because my brothers were acting up. They were so upset they couldn't sell their house for a gazillion more dollars than everybody else. I'm like, you over improved the house in the neighborhood. Now, I didn't understand this back then, what was happening, but I understand it now. Being a real estate agent, I'm like, they over improved. They're never gonna get their money back. They probably put $200,000, $300,000 into a house and they did not get that back for that neighborhood. They might get it now, right? But it's been over 20 years. So they would have to stay there for another 20 years because they over improved that house. So you wanna try to prevent your clients from doing stuff like that. Questions? Oh, let me bring this up. Do not list a house without going to look at it. Even if it is a rundown, shelled out, burnt out, squatter filled, whatever, at least drive by it and put your eyes on it. At least put your eyes on it. And if it's not, if it's a move-in ready, I don't know how you list it, don't put your eyes on it. But I'm here to tell you what happens. I was representing a buyer and the listing agent never even met the seller. Never had a phone conversation, they did everything via email. The seller tried not to show up because they were busy traveling on settlement day. The seller was full of shit. And I had to threaten people with bodily harm and got them there. But she'd never even been in the house. And if I was paying more attention, it wasn't like I was so busy or distracted while I was going through the transaction. I recalled certain comments she made. And like when I put my offer in, she was really surprised because she felt like I was lowballing her. And I was like, in my mind going, I ran comps and you're selling your house, which has not been updated since the 60s, for the same price that the brand new renovated Philly specials are going for in the area. There's like a $75,000 difference. We still gave her a fair enough offer, but it was about $35,000 under what she had it listed for. But the seller knew that. He knew what he was trying to do. He's had one of those mindsets where I'll list it high because I know people are gonna come in low. Sat on the market for over 200 days with that mindset. And he still got to offer 35,000 or what he wanted, you know what I mean? So anyways, we get under contract, but if I had paid attention, I'd been like, this woman never been to that house. I should have picked up on it when she was like, oh, that's a low ball offer. Man, she never went out there. She only went by what the seller had told her, which was, oh, this is newly renovated, it's this or that. He never renovated it. He might have put it like a new water heater, maybe fix the roof, but all the inside the house was from the 60s, right? Do not be that agent. And then let's talk about when you're presenting. Speaking with confidence and even making it till you make it if you're new or a little nervous will go a long way. They do not know what you don't know. They only know what you show them. Your prospective clients only know what they see in front of them and only what you say. All that doubt and lack of confidence is only internal, and unless you let it show on your external. So speaking clear and talking about facts. Don't say I think. Don't say I feel. You say what the comps tell me is, what the market stats for this neighborhood tell me is, what I have found looking in the MLS and through recent sale records is. Make sense? oh, I feel like your house is worth this, well, we feel all types of things. We're usually wrong, right, we can feel anything. You have to keep bringing it back to the math needs to be math, right, we cannot argue, some people are crazy, will argue with numbers, but this is what the numbers are. This is not your personal thought, it is not the neighbor's personal thought, it's not even, you're not even talking personally to them. I tell you guys all the time, these sellers, they think their house is worth $1 million, because why? The first thing out of the wife's mouth, my baby's here, your badass kids, where are they right now? You know what I mean? Like but that's how they feel, doesn't matter, none of that matters, it's what the, market is saying. And to also help you is showing them low, medium, and high comps. Because you're gonna show them pictures, I usually just email them to myself. Maybe their house is move-in ready, it's not a shit show, right? So I'm gonna show them though, if your house was in this condition, which obviously it's not, this is the price range we're looking at. Your house is this condition, which is more closely to yours, you guys have taken really good care of this house, it just hasn't been renovated recently. Here's the price range we're looking at. Now, if you were to renovate the home just like these, this is the price. Because that helps keep them a little more, realistic, less delulu, if you will, and you're showing them again, facts. This house sold in this condition for this price. This house sold in this condition for that price. You can highlight a few things, like maybe there's some small things they can do, or spend a little money here or there to help elevate their price, like you can take your house to this house at this level by doing ABC. Using a net sheet. They wanna know what their bottom line is. So if you show up to a listing presentation, you can say, I prepared a seller net sheet with what I think the optimal listing price is, and if we list it here, this is what you would net. I'm also wanting to list at this price because if we price it right, we can garner multiple offers and get above what we've listed it. The list price does not have to be the sale price. It's the starting point. It can go up or down. It's negotiable. And I always explain that to my sellers. I'd rather list it right and get multiple offers so that we can go up. Because if you list it too high, the only place you can go is down. If you list it too high, the only place that number can go is down. I don't want that. I want it to go up. I'd rather them be a little tight with me initially, with a price that's a little low to them, what's actually right for the market. And then I look like the best agent in the world because I sold a shitty house for $31,000 over ask because I got people to fight over it. Right?
Where do you put on a net sheet, when you know?
I use the seller's net sheet directly from Bright. It's gonna have the taxes already, yeah, I'm a fake a settlement sheet, a seller net sheet
Yeah,
settlement.
you say the settlement sheet.
Yeah, I
You
use
don't
the
know
S.
exactly the-
the- Yeah, I don't know, I just come up with a scenario that could happen, and a realistic one. If we list for this right price, here's your prorated taxes, let's say I put it up next week and it sells on, 30 days from then, right? We're gonna settle 30 days from then. So maybe on the sheet, it's maybe 45 to 55 days out from the day I'm presenting. If we list it by here, it could sell by here, it's gonna prorate the taxes, I'm gonna put my fees in there, I'm gonna guesstimate title fees or whatever. Also, if, given the price point in the area, if I know that the potential buyer's probably gonna need assist, I take that into consideration too. So I might show them a net without assist and a net with assist, and then have a conversation about, if we get a buyer with assist, we can always counter with higher price to make up for the percentage of assist, and you still net the same. You know, like, oh, as long as I net the same, right? That's how that goes, you know what I mean? And the big thing is, why this price? And all the things I've been talking about for the past 53 minutes is why this price. Facts, you cannot half-ass this job. A lot of people do, which is why we got slapped with that in our lawsuit, which is why people don't respect us. Do not contribute to the fuckery that is real estate right now. I want you guys to do better, set a new standard. You will come out on top. If you do that, you will come out on top. Also, you'll have agents that don't like to set standard, get mad at you, and it just, nothing gives me more joy. Go ahead, Lee.
What is the strategy behind the listings that they start at like say 250? And then like a week or two, it's like 265. Now I've seen plenty of listings recently where the price is going up, even if they're sitting on the market past a month.
So there's two things that could happen. The number one cause for that, if it's not a strategy, they probably put it up, right price, and got a lot of offers, and the sellers got greedy and forced the listing agent to up the price because they're getting greedy. That's not a strategy. That's that fuckery I was just talking about. But that's what usually happens. Another way is that if they didn't get a lot of views at 250, they put it at a different price to prove to the sellers that it's, you know what I mean? Or they wanna put in different brackets, there's different brackets for number of people that are looking. And if you look on Bright, and you can get a report that shows you how many houses are selling at what price points. And let's say the 250s are not moving, but there's a lot of activity in the 260 to 275 for whatever reason. They're putting it up to 265 to jump into that pool of buyers. And if they really were okay with the 250, then they're trying to jump in front of more fish and hook one to bring them down, but that's risky, I would never do that. But 9 times out of 10, it's a greedy seller, it's not a strategy. And it will happen to you guys. It will happen, when the people at this West Philly house, they called me like, Tess, we have so many people, why don't you up the price? I said, what price would you like? And I will have them fight to that price, I'm not changing on the MLS, because then all these people that are coming here right now will not be coming in here. I had 18 different people fighting over that little shitty house, that's why the price went up so high. That's what you want. And I did better, they wanted 105,000. I got them 131. I had it listed at what, 90?
99.
99, I had it listed at 99. I promised them to get them 105, even though I listed it for 90. I promised them. That made good, right? But after the first day of open houses, they got greedy. And it was 6 siblings, because their mom passed away, we were selling the mom's house. 6 siblings all got greedy, they all tried to gang up on me, I'm getting rapid text messages, phone calls, and we'll get another agent. I said, go to another agent, I'm taking it down, like, you're not gonna get none of these, oh, you have to, I don't have to do shit. I don't have to do anything, right? So that it will happen, you just have to hold fast, like, no, I'm not going to raise the price, the only reason why there's all these people coming in here is because our prices are right. Yeah. Your confidence is as valuable as your numbers. Some of you are probably going, Tess, you're a little arrogant. Maybe. Maybe just a little. You'll get there too, it's okay.
But again, it's a situation where you have to come into like a middle ground with the seller, where the comps, where you probably don't list at the right price, but a little bit above that. And then you do get an offer where the buyers are all need, like you're trying to get them to do seller six on top of it, but you're not sure that it's gonna appraise, that shouldn't be a variable, right?
You deal with that as it comes, like being so, like, worried about if it's gonna appraise or not, you like cross that bridge when they come to it. Also, did they write an appraisal gap in their offer? How bad do they want the house? Like, I like to tackle things that are in front of me, like but also the first thing you said, like, what if you have to come to a middle ground with the seller? You know. And I know that some of you get into situations where you're like, I need to get this money, you might never get the money even after you put the listing up if it's not done right. You need to really be confident in that. You need to know that, listening to your seller versus listening to the facts and the market stats, you still might not get paid. I sold that house in 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, moved up, right? I would have rather done that and even if we sold it at the 99 where I listed it and they weren't happy because they really wanted that 105, I'm getting my check in 15 days. They are moving on and selling in the state for a house that they were never gonna fix up and do anything with. And they still got what they agreed to. You know what I mean? I would rather do that than listen to my sellers and then scream at me and tell me I'm a for shit agent 180 days later because their house is listed on the market. Yeah, because even 2 or 3 weeks after you put a house up, lowering the price, you're still fighting an uphill battle. Now everybody's like, oh, we lowered the price and wear them down. What's wrong with the house? You know what I mean?
Instantly, what's wrong?
I cannot stress enough how important it is to price right. Your first impression on the market is the lasting impression, and you can't go erase it. As soon as that thing goes up in Bright MLS, it imprints the history of that house, and there's no go back. And sometimes you need to explain that. The average home buyer and seller does not know all these intricacies behind the scenes for our real estate lives. They don't know that there's a forever record of the house in the Bright MLS. A lot of people don't understand that. It's like getting arrested. It's on your record. You put that house up, the minute you publish it right, there's no getting rid of that. You can either cancel it, withdraw it, close it. That's it. It's still sat there. And even if they fire you because they got mad at you, because you listen to them and they get mad at you, and they fire you for listening to them, instead of putting your foot down, when they get the next agent, that's still the next agent's uphill battle. The next agent just gets lucky because all the time passed under your name, but now it looks fresh again. You know what I mean? How bad does that suck? Oh, that would make me so upset. I haven't had that happen to me in a long, long time, but even when it happens to you guys, I get upset, because I'm the one that was supporting you through all that work up front, and now nobody over here gets paid, right? I'm like, oh damn, that agent just came in and picked that loading through, rude. And then here's a little call to action. Smart pricing, speed plus multiple offers, blending art and science, which we talked a lot about. Trust a pro to guide the strategy. That trust a pro to guide the strategy, you're the pro. So you gotta get your agents to trust you versus what they wanna do. Also, I like to say my little saying here at the bottom, we're not just listing homes, you're selling them. Like, do you just wanna list your home, you just want people to be able to see it, or do you want someone to buy it? Yeah,
You put the commission, automatically like upfront when you say.
I always start at the top. Yep. Yep, I would say, you know, our industry standard is 6%, but of course it's negotiable. You have to say that, of course it's negotiable.
So that's the top 6.
Yeah. Do I ever land on that? Hardly ever. One, I'm softy. Two, I don't in my mind actually care to get the 6. I know that I start there and I feel very lucky, but I know we have to be a little competitive, right? So I'm like, the industry standard is 6, and for a 6% listing, we do da 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 da. However, because I like you guys, I'm willing to give you a discount, I'll do 5. Right? You know, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I do, right now, most of the business that I do is like someone I know or that was referred to me. For example, that house over in West Philly, I literally listed it for 4%. So I got 2, the other person got 2. It was not a lot of money. But it was an agent of mine from Georgia, and it was her family's house. That was her grandma's house. And it was her aunts and uncles being greedy trying to fight. So because of that relationship, I wanted to help out her family and help them out, right? So, and she doesn't have active license anymore, so I didn't have to pay her 25%. I was like, listen, because I'm not paying you, I'm gonna hook your aunties and your family up with you for 4%, right? Now they're already referring everybody else that lives in that whole neighborhood to me, you know what I mean? So you do good by one person, you might, you know, it's in the volume, right? I'm thinking long term. I always think long term, not short term. You can tell instantly when you're dealing with the agent who's only thinking about right now and not ahead. They just want all their stuff right now.
You go into the, are you dividing that commission to like sometimes explain that to maybe, you know, like, hey, we're not taking this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very transparent about how it works. Yeah, I tell them this is why we charge as much, and when they say, well, I heard that, we don't have to, you don't have to. But if you do not give me enough money to offer other agents on this listing, the amount of buyers that we're gonna be exposed to is gonna be exponentially lower, and it's gonna sit here longer. You're paying for taxes, you're paying for utilities, your house is not sold, it's stopping you from moving to your next house. So that's up to you what this is worth. Like, I'm gonna do my very best, but I'm gonna be very transparent about what you're gonna get versus what you pay for. And I'm okay with that. You know, if you only wanna pay me 2% and I don't have any money to offer, well, this is what that's gonna look like. This comp I showed you, this comp I showed you, and this comp I showed you, they were paying 5 or 6% commission and giving 2.5 or 3 to the buyer's agent, because that's how to bring the buyers. But I'm very transparent. I do not hide anything. It's like take it or leave it, if you will. Right? You know, I mean, and I explained it in a soft way, you know what I mean? But it's still out there. It's still, there's no question about who's getting paid what, how much things cost. Taking the time to explain these things in the forums too. I know some of you guys send me forms to review, and the only reason why they're wrong is because you didn't read it. You tried to remember what blanks got what put into it versus actually reading it for yourself. You do, it's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but I know what you're doing. You're like, oh, but I thought 3% wasn't that blank. I'm like, if you read the actual sentence where you just filled in that blank, you would have known better. So I know you're not reading. And it's a little scary, because I said, dang, if my agents aren't reading these forms thoroughly, and they don't really take the time to understand, there's no way they're conveying the importance and the reason for these forms to their clients. No way, right? Gotta protect yourself. And that's tonight's class with Miss Tiana. Again, listings. Maggie, you look deep in thought.
No, I'm just talking and I'm gonna be when you're back.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I could read your lips, that's why. I was like.
Oh, you're good.
Yes. A very stoic laugh. All right,